Touchdown, Pittsburgh!
Touchdown, Washington!
Good evening, boys and girls. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Steelskin Show, a show hosted by one diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan and one diehard Washington Redskins fan. From game recaps, game previews, news headlines, analysis, opinions, and all kinds of other stuff, we have got you covered on all things Pittsburgh Steelers and Washington Redskins. My name is Patrick, and I'm the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers here on the show.
I'm Chris, voice of the Washington Redskins.
Chris, I lost my drawstring on these shorts. It's been okay. You have to understand that I have a good relationship with the drawstring. Okay,
Right.
It's been on these shorts for years. It's been through a lot. Just been draped out of my shorts. I usually have to tuck it in. I can't fix it. There was a big knot in it. Sully used to play on it. I used to get it caught on doors. You know, I had a love-hate relationship with this thing. So I get these shorts out of the dryer this evening, and the drawstring is just gone.
It left.
So I'm a little down tonight. I missed my drawstring.
Okay.
I think the dryer ate it. Like, I looked around for it. I was like, man, where is it? And it's just gone.
Yeah.
So
Well, it happens. Bro.
Yeah.
Just need to let it go.
You remember when you lost your first drawstring?
No.
Wow, you're not helping right now. Folks, big episode of the Steelskin Show tonight. We got a double header for you guys tonight. After we do this episode, keep it locked to the Steelskin Show here on YouTube.com because we'll have another episode coming right after that. But Chris, we have got a lot of things to discuss today. Today, our agenda is to discuss the Steelers and Redskins finalized 53-man roster. Now, some of you might have been wondering, hey, why didn't you boys take to YouTube right away to do a 53-man roster analysis right when it happened? Well, because anybody who knows anything about football knows that if you're smart, you'll give it a day or two.
Yeah.
Because, look, they've got to get that 53-man roster down by that deadline. Man, you give it at least a day or two. There's cuts, there's trades, there's draft picks being sent off, there's this player signed, this guy's released and signed back to the practice squad. There's just so much that goes on that doing a preliminary analysis show just would have been wrong. Because I don't know about you guys, we had a ton of different things happen.
Yeah, I mean, we had kind of an eventful...
Oh, yeah. We had a lot of some good, some bad, some things I love, some things I disagree with. But anyway, that's why we're here tonight doing the analysis. Chris, let's start with you today, sir, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Now, let's start with if you don't mind, I'll ask you and you tell me. Let's start with the defensive side of the football. Do you mind?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Don't mind.
Now, if you also don't mind, sir, why don't we start with talking about you guys' final 53? Why don't we start with the safety position? And I am intentionally luring you into a trap. I'm doing this on purpose. I know you wanted me to ask you about the offense first, but I'm asking you about the defense first because, Chris, I need to know what is going on with a man named Sua Cravens. So let's get the safety position out of the way, and while we're doing it, we got to talk about this because apparently the report comes out, what was it, earlier in the week or last week that he's contemplating retirement. Like, what? And then apparently Bruce Allen talked him out of it, and now he's on the exempt list or something like that.
Yeah, and there's a couple of technicalities that are kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna just turn the show over to you now. What the heck is going on?
I don't know. Nobody.
All right,
Nobody.
there you go.
That's it. Okay, let's move on. Listen, there are things that get dropped in your lap that you just kind of sit there and scratch your head, and you just don't have a good answer for. You know,
Yeah.
You don't have an analysis for, and this is one of them. Telephone.
Real life, folks.
The bottom line is this: Stuart Cravens, sometime Saturday evening, did a group text with his position mates, secondary,
Right.
basically telling them he was done, he loved them, peace out. Went and talked to the Redskins front office. The Redskins front office said, look, don't make a rash decision. He indicated he wanted to retire. And the Redskins said, look, go home. We've got some options that we can do to give you some time. And they've done that. So I don't know how much of this is maybe Sua Cravens has lost the desire to play football. I don't know. There's a lot of talk about him having some family issues he's having to deal with, and that's kind of weighed on him. I'll say this up front. Sua Cravens doesn't owe any of us any kind of explanation.
And that's a very important point to make.
I'm not mad at this.
Yeah.
I'm not mad. I'm not blaming anybody. I mean, Sua Cravens is 22 years old.
Yeah.
And he's got free will.
I was going to say, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't get mad at a guy for making a personal decision. You know?
And if his decision is to quit football, I'm not gonna blame him for that. It's his call.
Right.
Do I think he's got a good career out in front of him? He certainly seems to. But I would. There are players that if they had pulled, if they had decided to do this, that I would probably be more upset just because, hey, I can't believe you're doing this after what the kind of career you've had.
But to be fair, though,
Cravens, just hasn't had enough of a foothold here to really get upset even about his playmaking.
That's a good point. I mean, I guess you can't miss what you didn't have, but at the same time, this guy was a second-round draft pick last year?
He was.
And, you guys have had, so many mix-ups at the safety position. You guys were kind of hoping he could be some stability.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. He definitely was a large part of the plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, it's sort of shocking. It's very shocking. I mean, you don't expect very many 22. You don't expect your second-round pick from a year ago to even be contemplating this. But what I wanted to kind of talk about is the Redskins played this very well. If a team puts you on the reserve exempt list and they notify you that they're doing that, then there is a 5-day window that essentially you have 5 days as that player to answer the team and try to get something going here. But that team essentially has 5 days. If you don't come back, then you're done for the year. Now, the difference in this situation and the reason the Redskins got a 4-game or a four-game roster exemption is because the 53-man roster was already set.
Right.
So it provides some protection. That little caveat provides some protection for the team.
Okay.
To say, look, we've already solidified our 53. This guy was on it. What are we supposed to do?
So basically they get a little extra time.
So there's a 4-week window now for Sua Cravens to figure out what he wants to do. I don't know, 4 weeks may not be enough. But at least there is a 4-week buffer for him to sort things out. And in the inside of that 4 weeks, the Redskins can begin. It gives them an opportunity to evaluate who they have. What's the Shazer ever going to look like?
Sure.
Do they need to maybe move Schweringer to strong safety and maybe start rookie Monte Nicholson at free safety? I mean, there's any number of combinations here that you could go through.
That Nicholson pick, man, it's turned out to be a lot more helpful
guy
than we
looked
all
good
thought.
in the preseason, but we'll get to that in just a minute. But anyway, there's been a lot of very ugly comments on Twitter towards Sua Cravens. And look, I'm not here to tell fans how they should or shouldn't react to something. That's completely your business. My position again is I don't have anything to be mad at. Sua Cravens hasn't put one nickel in my pocket. He hasn't taken one nickel out of my pocket.
Well,
so
and again, I think you have to respect the individual, man.
Yeah, if he plays, he plays. I think he's got some patching up to do if he comes back in the locker room.
Sure.
I think there is a camaraderie. I think there is a trust factor that these guys have in each other. And, when a guy does make a decision like this, he's got some rebuilding to do. There was a report that this has happened before. He was injured at USC and basically went missing for 3 days. Now, this was not brought out into the light during the draft process. This was information that teams weren't privy to. But I don't know. Maybe Sua Cravens, people handle stress differently.
Different ways, yeah.
Some people hit it head on. Some people go into a shell. Some people run away. I mean, So anyway, whatever Sewell Cravens has going on in his life, I hope he gets it sorted out. But he's got to get it sorted out from a life standpoint. Put football on the back burner.
Right.
You get these other stuff figured out, then see where football slots.
Yeah, and I think so many times as fans we forget that these are people, too.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
These are people that, we like to think these guys have tons of money and therefore they don't have any problems.
Yeah, and they have nothing else to
they're
do.
They're still subject to the same situations we go through in our lives. I mean, that's just the facts.
Yeah.
So in your leadoff to safety, there was a lot of shock when the 53 was announced that McClure had made the roster. And he was an undrafted free agent. I'm going to pull him up here, who really flashed pretty well during the preseason, but he flashed very much in a third-team sense. So, it was hard to – at first it was hard for me to kind of wrap my head around that, hey, how did Stephen McClure make this football team?
Yeah.
But you go back and you look at his college tape, which I spent a decent amount of time doing, and this guy's got good tape out there. He's a very good tackler. That's one of the things that popped
important
to me. He's a very good tackler.
And you got to be a safety. I mean,
yeah, especially in this day and age where you have so many releases over the middle, crossing routes, stuff like that. But anyway, right now the Redskins have chosen to stay at 4 safeties. They did not bring another safety on to replace Sewell Cravens. So right now we entered the season with Swearinger, DeShazer Everett, who I'm very interested to see. I thought last year he deserved more playing time than he got.
Yeah.
I think he is a truer free safety. I'm not sure. Not free. I think he is a true strong safety. But I think he's got good movement in coverage. I mean, I'm interested to see what he does with this opportunity.
Right.
But anyways, obviously Stephon McClure and Monte Nicholson is the backup. Very impressed with the way Monte Nicholson played. So
yeah, I think he was kind of a shock in a lot of ways. I mean,
yeah, I thought he looked very disciplined and very physical, which is one thing that people said he wasn't. They said this guy was, not a very physical player. Did not play to his size very well. I don't know. I didn't see that, but 16 games worth may tell us.
Sure.
I guess working back to linebacker, the Redskins kept 5. I'm not going to go name by name there.
Okay.
They kept the 5 that we thought they'd keep. Preston Smith, Gillette, Chris Carter.
Now is this outside we're talking about?
Yeah, Ryan Anderson and Ryan Kerrigan. Inside was kind of where the surprise was because I sort of felt like they were in a box and we're going to have to keep 4.
Sure.
But the surprise there isn't that Mason Foster, Zach Brown, Compton, and Martrell Spate made it. Surprise was Josh Harvey Clemens, and it's a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
I love this kid.
Yeah.
I love this kid. He makes it on the roster, which a lot of people, including myself, didn't really think would happen. And my position was I felt like he should make it because they seem to want to have that nickel linebacker presence there.
Well, I was going to ask you, his role is going to be more of a dime backer.
Yes, that's right. And that's why they drafted him.
Right.
And now I'm in the boat with Manny Benton, that I feel like he could play strong safety with no trouble.
Look, hey, you got to give me credit. I was shouting this dude out on our draft.
Really like what
show.
he could do with strong safety.
I love this guy.
But anyway, you find places for good football players, and I feel like they did that with Josh Harvey Clemens. I got no problem with that with 10 linebackers. I was hoping they'd keep 7 defensive linemen. They kept 6. There's no true nose tackle, so we're kind of back to where we started from. I'm just going to let it play out. I'm just going to let that one play out. I do feel like they needed kind of a space eater there. Really disappointed Joey Mbu. Not only did he not make the active roster, he was poached by the Indianapolis Colts through the waiver process. So we lost him. Kind of bummed about that, to be honest with you, because we just don't have a massive presence in the middle. So I don't know. We may be looking at a carbon copy of last year where we play 4 down linemen 75% of the time.
Well, do you need a dedicated nose tackle?
I feel like here's my problem, Patrick, and I know I talked about it last year. If you're going to play 75% of your snaps with 4 down linemen, Why do you not become a 4-3 defense and quit this sham of a 3-4?
That's a good point.
I don't understand it. I don't. Now, I know that package-wise it makes all the sense in the world, but if you're going to play 3-4 and you're going to have those personnel, I do, and I've come around to this thinking, I do think one of those guys, and I think Phil Taylor would have made this football team. I do think Phil Taylor would have made it. Probably would have kept 7 linemen at that point.
And he would have been your nose.
And he would have been a nose tackle. But my position, and I'll quit preaching right here, what is the matter, even if you're going to play in a 4-3, if you're going to play that nickel, what's the matter with having a big guy on the line every now and again on first downs to protect yourself against the run?
Yeah.
What's the problem with putting that guy in and say, all right, whether it was Phil Taylor, whether it was Mbu, hey, on first down, they may want to put us and stabilize us in a way to where we have 4 down line, but we're not going to give up bulk in the middle.
Sure. If I could play devil's advocate a little bit, because look, this is the big reason why a guy like Dan McCullers on our team and just got booted so far back, and a guy like Javon Hargrave gets drafted. Hargrave can play that nose, but he's a versatile defensive lineman to where he can also get after the passer as well.
Right.
Do you kind of feel like we're getting to a day and age in football where dedicated nose tackles are no longer needed?
I agree.
Because look, they're so limited in what they give you.
Yeah, they are disappearing, and if you can find a guy that can do both, do that.
Find you a boy that
That's
can do
great.
both.
Now, and maybe for us it's Stacy McGee and Ziggy Hood, but I'm just not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not quite there understanding why they did what they did.
And
but again, the Phil Taylor injury, I think, really changed a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, again, I recognize Mbu and Francis were both young players. Maybe they just viewed them as not ready to contribute consistently.
Sure. And who were your linemen exactly? You said there were 6 total?
Well, it's McLean, Stacy McGee, Terrell McLean, Stacy McGee, Jonathan Allen are the starters.
Okay.
Ziggy Hood, Matt Ioannidis, who definitely deserved to make the roster, had a great preseason, and Anthony Lanier.
Okay. All right.
So we'll see how those 6 do compared to the last 6.
Okay.
Offensively on the line.
I think you missed corner, though. I don't think we went over corner.
Oh, we did not go over corner. That's another position I was really happy about. Thank you for reminding me. We kept 6, which I was hoping we would do that. Obviously, Breland and Norman are on the outside. They're the starters. And Kendall Fuller is the starting nickel corner.
Nickel corner.
We kept Fabian Moreau,
Hey.
who had a great preseason. We kept Quentin Dunbar, which I was a little surprised at. I guess they just weren't quite ready to move on from him. But we also kept Josh Holsey.
Oh, he did.
I'm thrilled with that guy. I feel like at some point he's going to have an impact on this season.
Yeah.
One way or the other. Very, very happy they kept him.
Okay.
I like this defensive roster a lot better than I did last year's. We'll see if the pass rushers that they've assembled, become, come to fruition. But we'll see. I'm hoping we're much better defensively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hoping we're much better.
Now, I had one question very quick. Are you a little worried about Ryan Anderson? It seems like this lingering injury thing is still...
He's back practicing now. So, I'm less worried now. But I guess we'll find out Sunday.
Yeah,
if he's good to go.
Yeah. All right, moving to the offense, sir. Where you want to start?
Let's just start O-line.
O-line, let's do it.
I'm not going to go through the starting 5. If you're a Skins fan, you know who the starting 5 are.
Yep.
They kept 3 initially back up. Roulier, Ty Nsekhe, and the big surprise was Tyler Catalina. The tackle out of Georgia.
And you were a fan of this guy.
Loved him when they signed him. But especially knowing they would bump him inside.
Right.
I mean, he was sort of a train wreck against speed at Georgia. Now, he handled himself well physically against big physical ends, but he did struggle against edge rushers with speed.
Right.
But he played – I thought he had a solid training camp and preseason. I was a little surprised Kyle Callis wasn't the one because he was the guy that everybody was really focused on if you were going to go with an undrafted free agent. But I think they like Callis's versatility because he can play tackle if he had to,
right?
Because he's had that experience. then they later on picked up T.J. Clemmings, who was cut by Minnesota, and he's a 3-year guy who, in one word, actually 2 words, he's train wreck. He was awful in Minnesota.
Whoa. Chris, tell me how you really feel there.
The clips that I've seen of him, and there's a guy named Mark Bullock who puts up good Twitter moments. From time to time, he writes. He's from England. He writes for the Washington Post. Does some freelance work for them. I mean, this dude was a train wreck, but he's got a lot of developable skills.
Yeah, he's got that upside.
People keep saying he's got an upside, so I think they brought him in to see what Callahan could do with it, because he is he's a big physical guy, but he's got some speed. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because that's sort of a trickle-down effect from the Sua Craven situation, because they chose to stay with just 4 safeties. They have an extra roster spot. T.J. Clemmings is the guy that's using it.
So you guys kept a total of 9?
We have 9 on the roster right now. Notably cut was Eric Kwanjo. I'm not surprised by that nor disappointed. I just don't think he developed enough to where he needed to be at this point in his career. We wish him well. Tight end, namaste. Tight end, they kept 4. No big surprise there. They were able to trade Mark Carrier to the Rams for a 7th-round pick.
Yeah.
I really kind of hate to see Mark Carrier go, because he'd been having an excellent training camp. But again, with Vernon Davis, his roster spot was set. No injuries happened during preseason. Miles Paul's very versatile special teams player. He wasn't going to get anywhere. And I kept saying Jeremy Sprinkle is a guy they're going to develop. They're going to develop this guy. They like him, and there was no way he was going anywhere. Quarterback, they kept 2, which they needed to do.
That shocked me a little bit.
No, they needed to. They had too many other players at different positions to waste on Sudfeld, who was going to be inactive.
How many triggered Redskin fans were there, Chris?
A lot. You had so many funny takes. I mean, well, there goes our future.
Oh, boy.
We just let our guy walk who's going to play. Man, I don't know what planet people are on when they're watching guys like Sudfeld play, but there's nothing that screamed future to me.
Yeah.
Other than future backup.
It sounds like a lot like this Bart Houston kid we had in our roster. Everybody loved Bart Houston.
They love the third string, especially in DC. We love our third string quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But he then signed with the Eagles practice squad. Of course, everybody's in a wad about that. Goes, he's going to be stealing signs, folks. There's 4 years worth of tape here from the Gruden offense, or 3 full years worth of tape from the Gruden offense.
All right.
Nate Sudfeld's going to provide very little, and based on his play at different times, I'm not even sure how good with the playbook he was.
Well, what do people?
That was mean. I'm sorry.
It was mean.
I'm sorry.
Gosh.
I'm really sorry.
I mean, what do people honestly think he's going to supplant Carson Wentz and he's going to come back? and bite you one day?
They're scared he's going to go divulge plays. That the Eagles just brought him in as a spy.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Nate, we like you. Tell us what you know.
I didn't think you guys' fan base was that tinfoil headed.
Man, there was a lot of it.
Whoa. I thought that was our fan base, but okay.
And I'm not going to. There was a guy who I really respect who covers the Redskins who basically said, "Can't believe they let Sudfeld go with the quarterback situation in flux the way it is." I'm like, are you serious? Okay. I'm more excited about Alec Torgerson, who we signed from Harvard to our practice squad to be quarterback than I was about Nate Sudfeld.
Play football and do some heart surgery. Yeah,
exactly. So anyway, went with 2. Kept 4 running backs: Rob Kelly, Samaje Perine, Chris Thompson, who just signed a 2-year contract extension. Well-deserved, young man. Well-deserved. And we kept Mac Brown.
Oh,
who is probably more ready to play the game than Samaje Perine is.
Yeah, Perine had a rough preseason.
Perine had an up and down preseason, but happy they kept Mac Brown.
Yeah,
very, very happy. We only kept 5 receivers, and this is where I kind of had my, breakdown type moment. Because, because not only do we keep Ryan Grant.
I'm sorry, I can imagine you at home breaking down over
which
this.
We knew. Okay, I wished Ryan Grant was not going to be on the roster, but he is. So we're just going to deal with it.
But you knew he was going to make it.
I know. But still, it's just seeing it in black and white just brought it home. Okay? Just seeing it in black and white just brought it home. Just made it real.
Oh, man.
So Ryan Gruden makes the roster, and they also kept Brian Quick.
Whoa.
And they kept Brian Quick. Obviously, Dotson, Crowder, and Pryor made the team.
Give me a skill player.
But They cut Robert Davis and Maurice Harris.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I was more surprised about Maurice Harris than I was Davis.
I was too, because Maurice Harris had been doing some returns for you.
Yeah.
You kind of got the idea that, okay, maybe he'll creep on as the 6. But I was really surprised that they cut those two. Now, I breathed easier when both of them signed to Washington's practice squad, because I felt like, okay, if you're going to cut these guys, you better get them on your practice squad.
Yeah.
You better make that happen. And they were able to. Maurice Harris, I'm not sure how high the ceiling is on this guy, but he seems to have a lot of good tools, and he had some experience last year. Was real surprised they decided to go with Quick. I really am. The only thing I can think is that Quick is a hedge for Dotson's injury history right now.
Yeah.
And maybe they felt like, look, if Dotson gets hurt and we trot out Ryan Grant, number one, we're going to lose size, we're going to lose speed. Quick has both.
Yeah.
Now, he's inconsistent, but then maybe they feel like he's more ready to step in a depth situation than Maurice Harris or Robert Davis.
Yeah.
So really happy they got them to the practice squad. That kind of made my day a little bit better. But I think that's – and then the 3 specialists, Hopkins, who really had a good had a really good preseason until he – I'm afraid Dustin's becoming the guy that –
Yeah, what's happened to Dustin, man?
I mean, he had a great preseason. He hit a 53-yarder, a 51-yarder, a 49-yarder, then he missed the 36-yarder.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
I feel like, last season there was a lot of buzz around this guy, and he just kind of let down last season as well. I mean,
we'll see. Tressway, fantastic. Nick Sundberg as the long snapper. So that's our roster.
Come on. It's a good roster.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. I mean, we've got some holes.
Sure.
Let me say it like this. This is very much a high upside roster, because if Josh Dotson stays healthy,
Yeah.
and he and Terrell Pryor and Kirk Cousins can get on the same page, then we'll be productive on the outside and then be able to attack defenses inside and out. Our running game, I'm comfortable with. So I'm happy with the offensive line, the starting 5. Love Inseki at depth. So I'm not unhappy with our roster.
Okay.
And I think we're better overall in a long-term sense than we were last year.
Yeah.
I do. I feel like we are. We're younger in a lot of areas too, which, again, short-term is going to be tough, but long-term it
could
should
be a lot
pay
better.
out.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's what I've got.
Okay. All right.
Patrick,
Hey.
enough about me.
Okay.
Let's talk about you.
Talk about me.
So I'm going to throw you in the same way you threw me in, brother.
Okay.
Start at safety.
Start at the safety position.
Let's do it.
Well, okay, so as you guys all know, I was a big Jordan Dangerfield fan. And as I sit here today and I read you our 5 safeties, yes, 5, I read you Mike Mitchell, Sean Davis, J.J. Wilcox, who we'll get to him in a second, who is a signing out of Tampa Bay. I think we traded away our 2018 6th-round pick for Wilcox. And then Robert Golden. And yes, folks, I just said Robert Golden and not Jordan Dangerfield. Wow. On Monday, Jordan Dangerfield was waived injured. Obviously, I'm shocked. I'm angry. And I think I speak for the rest of Steelers Nation that the feeling was pretty much universal. We were all wondering, how in the world does this guy get cut and not Robert Golden? After the 2 years that Robert Golden has gotten snaps at actual safety, the guy's been a train wreck, for lack of better words. Dangerfield, on the other hand, has been the good one.
Now, what kind of injury was it?
Okay, and that's another thing we'll talk about. Some people, were saying, well, he did have injury. Yes, he had a minor ankle sprain. This guy did not have a grade 3 sprain to where he was going to miss, say, 4 or 5 weeks, or a torn Achilles. No, he had a mild ankle sprain. Most likely maybe would have missed this week, or maybe would have been good to go, but maybe not dressed for the game. But that's it. It's not like the guy had a torn ACL, for crying out loud. He had a mild ankle sprain.
Wow.
So, look, I don't mean to be the hot take guy here. I think the Steelers did Jordan Dangerfield wrong. I don't know. I don't really know how else to say it. I think when you keep a guy like Robert Golden on the roster and you cut a guy like Jordan Dangerfield, you give the keys to the guy who didn't earn it. And that's just kind of how I feel. Robert Golden. I mean, look, Robert Golden is a tremendous special teams player. I like his attitude. I like his work ethic. We all like Robert Golden, but look, if we're going to come at this from a skill standpoint,
right,
the guy hasn't been good. Dangerfield has, on the other hand.
So you're starting safety.
Our starters are Mike Mitchell and Sean Davis. However, though, Mike Mitchell is a little bit of a toss-up for this coming week. And look, folks, I'm a little worried about Mike Mitchell's, health in general. Now, this is where we will cue J.J. Wilcox, the signing we made out of Tampa Bay. Everybody knows J.J. Wilcox previously from the Dallas Cowboys. He only signed with the Buccaneers this offseason, then they quickly got rid of him for good reason. They got T.J. Ward, so why would you keep J.J. Wilcox? But look, the J.J. Wilcox signing is one that I don't think any Steelers fan can be mad about. One thing that immediately is going to jump off the page when you watch this guy on tape, hits ridiculously hard. Very much like he really mimics Mitchell in a lot of ways. He's that guy that, man, if you cross over the middle, he's going to meet you, he's going to knock your head off. So he's got that Pittsburgh Steeler, physical mentality to him.
Right.
That's something that's very attractive about him. Another thing I like about him is that he's a very versatile safety. He can kind of play that linebacker / hybrid safety type position. He can play single high safety, deep safety. Took some snaps at corner, I believe, when he was back at Dallas. So this is a guy who gives you a lot of bang for your buck. He is a veteran. He's not a slouch. He does know how to play the position. So if a guy like, Mike Mitchell goes down, I rest easier at night knowing that it's going to be J.J. Wilcox backing him up and not Robert Golden. I don't want to see Robert Golden on this field. Other than special teams, I don't want to see Golden on that field playing snaps of safety.
So he's your Ryan Grant.
He is my Ryan Grant right now, yes, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
But kind of back to Dangerfield, man. Chris, you knew how big of a fan I was of this guy that I was. I hope he lands on his feet. I hope by some weird cosmic event he signs back with the Steelers some way. I really think the Steelers did this guy wrong. I just needed to vent about that. That's how I feel. Sorry. But yes, your safeties are Mike Mitchell, Sean Davis, J.J. Wilcox, and Robert Golden. And with Wilcox, you have to expect right off the bat that this guy is probably going to be your primary dime back.
Right.
I mean, Keith Butler is definitely going to try to get this guy involved in a lot of sub-package situations. So it's a signing that I'm not against. I do like it. One area that I think we're all a little bit concerned with J.J. Wilcox is he kind of was known as the bad angle guy at Dallas. That's eventually what got him cut. Very hard-hitting tackler, but a lot of times in his career, he tended to go for the big hit too much, you know what I mean, and ended up, missing an easy tackle. Hopefully that's something that we don't see in Pittsburgh because I'm a little over the tackling issues at this point. But anyway, those are your 5 safeties. It is what it is. Moving on to cornerbacks. They are as follows. Artie Burns, Joe Hayden, William Gay, Mike Hilton. Chris, my boy, Mike Hilton did indeed make the 53-man roster. Cody Sensabaugh, Brian Allen made the roster, and so did Cameron Sutton. Now, technically, Cameron Sutton made the initial 53-man roster, was then put on injured reserve with his hamstring injury because he did re-injure that in the game against Carolina. Do have to imagine that he is going to be a candidate to return later on in the middle of the season. I don't think this hamstring injury is going to keep him out all season. However, though, if you're the Steelers, man, you are playing this one as safe as you possibly can.
Right.
After this guy injured it twice now, the soft tissue injuries can really, really be serious things if you don't watch them.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
do think he'll come back later on in the year, but for now, let's keep him on IR as long as he needs. Look, I could not be happier that Mike Hilton made this team. He is most likely, you look at what the Steelers have been doing in practice this week. It appears that Mike Hilton is going to be your day one slot guy. That makes me very, very happy. And look, you love these stories. A guy who comes in as an undrafted free agent, nobody knows his name. He doesn't have a high pedigree on another team. Nobody knows who he is. Balls out, makes a 53. I love stories like this, and I'm so happy for Mike Hilton. And then obviously with the addition of Joe Hayden, we all knew the writing was on the wall. Chris, Ross Cockrell is no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler. He was traded to the New York Giants in exchange for a conditional draft pick next year. Look, folks, I'm just going to say this about Ross Cockrell. Very much like you with Sua Cravens, just a lot of nasty comments about Ross Cockrell whenever he got canned. A lot of people. I mean, it was almost like an evil dictator got killed, and all the peasants and the poor people are like, yes, he's gone finally. Guys, look, these are my thoughts on Ross Cockrell. I do not think Ross Cockrell is a bad football player.
you can't question this guy's practice. You can't question this guy's preparation. I just think at the end of the day, this guy is a zone cornerback.
Right.
He is not built for man-to-man coverage. He's not built for press man. And when you look at the direction that this defense is trying to go this season, he just doesn't really meet that. So I wish Ross all the best. I defended him as many times as I could.
You did. Yeah, you did.
I tried. I really tried with the guy. But look, I don't hate him. I have a lot of respect for him. He's a very high-class guy. I think the Giants do get a solid depth cornerback in Ross Cochran. I wish the guy all the best. I really, really do. Love you, Ross. Brian Allen. Yeah, I love that guy. Maybe one day I'll get a number 31 jersey. I have to custom make it at this point because it no longer exists. But and Brian Allen made the team. I was a little surprised about that. Do kind of have to wonder if the Brian Allen, him making the roster mainly had to do with Cameron Sutton being moved to IR. It could have been. But look, at the end of the day, I'm happy for Brian Allen. I was more than sure that this guy was going to make the practice squad, not make the 53. But, look, when you watch him in the preseason, you watched him in camp, what we realized is that this guy was not as raw as we thought. Now, look, he clearly still has a long way to go. But what we realized is that this guy's football IQ and his technique was a lot farther along than we all kind of realized. I mean, he really shocked a lot of us. So, very happy he made the roster. Will he play snaps at actual corner? Hard to see that, barring some sort of big emergency. I think the likelihood is that he's going to be, primarily be a special teams guy. But anyway, very happy for Brian Allen. Glad he made this roster. Moving on now to outside linebackers. I think we all know exactly who they are. No surprises. Bud Dupree, T.J. Watt, James Harrison, Anthony Chickalo, and Arthur Moats. It was also announced this week that T.J. Watt is going to be your starting outside linebacker, not James Harrison. And I don't really have a problem with that at the end of the day. TJ's the younger guy. He's obviously more fresh. He's going to give you a higher number of snaps than Harrison probably can.
Right.
Now, at the end of the day, I'm not one of these people out there saying, but Harrison's old. Look, Harrison's in phenomenal shape. I don't worry about Harrison's shape. It's just, get Watt in there. He is the younger guy. We do know he is the future at outside linebacker. It's probably a good thing that he's going to get the bulk of the snaps. And look, if you need who wouldn't want to have James Harrison coming in as your rotational linebacker? I mean, I can't ask for a better rotational linebacker than that. So those are your outside linebackers. No shocks there. Inside linebackers, this one was a little bit of a shock. I don't think we saw this one coming. So you had Ryan Shazier, Vince Williams, Tyler Matakevich, LJ Ford, and then you had Steven Johnson. Now, this was not a move that happened initially. On Monday, once the Steelers placed Cameron Sutton on injured reserve and Jordan Dangerfield was released, Steven Johnson was then signed back to the team. To try to get into the Steelers' heads on this one, I guess they felt like because they were releasing Dangerfield and because they were putting Sutton on IR, they could use an extra spot at inside linebacker. Yeah. And look, with Steven Johnson, he's not ever going to give you snaps at actual inside linebacker, but this guy's a phenomenal special teams player. This guy really was a special teams thumper for us.
That matters.
No, it does matter.
It matters.
It really does, and I think we saw that last season. I am of the mind that when he went down with his broken leg last year in that Ravens game, I think you did sort of see a change in the special teams play a little bit. So he is a solid special teams guy, so I'm happy to have him. On the D-line, so 5 of these guys, obviously we know who they are: Cameron Hayward, Javon Hargrave, Stephon Tuitt, Tyson Alu, L.T. Walton, and then you had Dan McCullers. Chris, did I not say that Dan McCullers was going to get cut? Maybe this is my Ryan Grant.
You did.
I feel about Dan McCullers making this team very much like I feel about Jordan Dangerfield getting cut. I think the Steelers gave the keys to the guy who did not earn it.
Wow.
Folks, ever since we drafted Dan McCullers, this guy has done nothing but been a disappointment. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be rash. I'm just being honest. Dan McCullers has done jack. Okay? Not to mention, the dude is 6'7", and when you watch the tape, it's as finesse tape as you can possibly get. And what I don't understand is when you watch Levon Hooks, when you watch Johnny Maxey, 2 of the guys who I thought would beat out McCullers, most definitely, they played better. They performed better in camp and in the preseason. So, at the end of the day, if I'm trying to get into the Steelers' heads on this one, I guess they like the experience. I guess they like the guy that was comfortable in the system, who had been there longer. But if I'm the GM, I'm going with the better guy. So, can I throw the Steelers a bone on this one? No, I cannot.
My hope is that I don't ever have to see number 93 out there on that football field. That's my hope. I hope Dan McCullers never takes a snap, just to be completely blunt about it. Moving to the offensive side of the football now, starting with quarterbacks. No shocks here. Ben Roethlisberger, Landry Jones, and Joshua Dobbs in that order, too. Moving on to running backs. Chris, my boy, made it. Terrell Watson made the roster, baby. Another feel-good story, very much like Mike Hilton, a guy who's an undrafted free agent. Nobody really knows anything about him. And just by hard work and having a great preseason and a great camp, makes his 53. And I'm a little bit surprised about that, because even though I thought Watson had a phenomenal preseason, I still was just thinking to myself, they're going to keep Nile Davis.
Right.
Davis didn't have a bad preseason, folks. I think that's something we should all keep in mind. The guy did not play poorly. He also gives you that special teams ability, to return kicks. So I was just sure they were going to keep Nile Davis, but they did indeed keep Terrell Watson. They did release Fitzgerald Toussaint, but they did sign Toussaint back to the practice squad. And at the end of the day, I am happy about that. This is a guy who has been in this system for a couple years now. He knows the system. He can also return kicks. If you ever did get in a pinch later on, in the season and you needed a surefire kick returner, you could.
He's a known quantity on your roster.
Absolutely.
On the practice squad, so if you had to have him.
Yeah. And look, Fitz Toussaint isn't a bad running back. He's not a great one either, but he's a solid running back, and he does give you that kick return ability. So I was happy to see this guy go back to the practice squad. Moving on to the offense. Well, I forgot to list all three of those there. Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, and Terrell Watson. Which, by the way, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Call it a hot take all you want. The Steelers have got one of the best backfields in the NFL. Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, and Terrell Watson.
Like anyone could even know that, Napoleon.
Oh, you wait for it. I mean,
I really like Connor and
clearly we all know what Bell can do.
Yeah, I mean, if Le'Veon Bell can kind of get through these first couple of games without,
Yeah, we're all kind of watching closely to see how his body does these first couple of weeks. I mean,
if he can do that, then I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and look, Terrell Watson, after the preseason this guy had, are we really going to get mad if they get him snaps? Absolutely not.
Right.
So I feel like this is the best backfield that I have seen in my lifetime since, I would say, maybe Willie Parker and Jerome Bettis. I don't think I've seen a backfield this stacked. Moving on to the offensive line. Chris, very much like you guys, we ended up keeping 9 offensive line. I did not think this was going to happen, but it did. You know who the first 5 are. Big Al, Ramon Foster, Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, Marcus Gilbert. Your depth guys, B.J. Finney, Chris Hubbard, Gerald Hawkins, and Matt Filer did indeed make this roster, Chris. I talked about Matt Filer having a strong preseason, having a strong camp. I even went as far as to say I feel like he did enough to make the team's 53-man roster. I just didn't think he would because I feel like they needed, extra players in other areas. But they did indeed keep Matt Filer, so I'm happy for him. I think he does deserve that. Tight end. This is one that I had a very big problem with, one of the more shocking moves we made. So your tight ends are as follows. They are Jesse James, Vance McDonald, and Xavier Grimble. Grimble made the roster. That means tight end David Johnson was cut. Honestly, man, look, if you're going to play devil's advocate with the Steelers here, I guess you say, hey, David Johnson's just a blocker. He's more of a special teams player. That's really all he is. But here's the problem. But you can say that, but here's the problem with saying that. Folks, Jesse James is an inconsistent blocker. Vance McDonald, for all the hype around Vance McDonald, go watch tape of him at San Francisco. Guys, he's a spotty blocker. We're very excited about what he gives us, with vertical route running and, being a downhill threat. But this guy's blocking was not all that impressive. So what you've just done is you have cut David Johnson, who is your best blocking tight end. And look, I talked about it a lot on this show last year. How many times did Todd Haley find creative ways to get David Johnson involved in this passing game?
Right.
Obviously, he's not catching 5 passes a game, folks. But how many times was this guy a nice little security blanket for Ben? So, at the end of the day, does it break this roster? No, it doesn't break the roster. We'll be fine. I just don't know how Grimble made it and David Johnson gets cut. I guess at the end of the day, they wanted to go with the younger guy, and they felt like that Johnson didn't give them too much in the way of value. So, anyway, I hope Johnson lands on his feet. I really like that guy. I felt really bad he was cut. Moving on to wide receiver, last but not least, they are Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, Eli Rogers, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Hunter. Pause here very quickly.
So, Chris, on our 53-man roster prediction show, I talked about how Justin Hunter was a guy who flashed at the beginning of camp. I just didn't think he was going to make the roster because I felt like he just drastically fell off. I'm telling you. He punched his ticket to make this roster in that Carolina Panthers game. I'm telling you. He caught the 61-yard, it was like 60-plus yard ball down the field, down the right sideline, beautiful pass thrown by Joshua Dobbs, hauled it in for a big touchdown, had a couple of other nice catches. I thoroughly believe that game, he punched his ticket to make this roster.
And do you think he's kind of doing what the Redskins did with Brian Quick?
Absolutely. He's 6'4",
kind of a security blanket.
Yes. And look, does Justin Hunter get snaps? I could see some red zone situations where they try to get this guy involved. He was a big red zone target in camp, but realistically, he's going to be a guy who primarily plays special teams. If Martavis Bryant or somebody is to go down, security blanket, kind of like you said. And last but not least, Darius Hayward-Bay did make this roster. He's kind of another little Ryan Grant on this team in a lot of ways. Now, I don't mean to completely downplay Darius Hayward-Bay. The guy's a tremendous special teams player. And at the end of the day, that's what the Steelers kept him for. He gives you a tremendous value on special teams. Not much in the way of receiving, but still is a big special teams threat for us. And that means wide receiver Sammy Coates is gone. Chris, he was traded to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for the Browns' 6th-round 2018 pick.
There you go.
I do want to say this, though. Kudos to the Steelers for getting value for this guy.
Yeah. I mean, you got something for him.
Well, because look, a lot of most Steeler fans were off the Sammy Coates train. We had enough of him. We'd seen enough of him. But you can't deny that there was a time during this guy's career. Look, remember the beginning of 2016? He was averaging at least a catch or more per game of 40-plus yards down the field. He's very fast. He's very athletic. He can stretch the field. He can take the top off of defense. Don't know if he'll catch the ball. That's Deshaun Kaiser. You may find that out this Sunday, sir. But, I do think it was a smart move for the Steelers to get value for this guy instead of just kind of throwing him out there. So, and it is interesting, Chris, because guess who we play week 1? The Cleveland Browns. If this man scores a touchdown against us, Chris, I don't care if we win the game. It's going to ruin my day. I don't need to see Sammy Coates score a touchdown on this defense. That will just really rub me the wrong way. So, and there you go, folks. That is your Pittsburgh Steelers finalized 53-man roster. Chris?
Very good.
Anything else from you,
That's
brother?
That's all I got.
All right, guys. So that is your finalized 53-man roster. Let us know what you think about the finalized rosters. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Comment below. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter. We are at Steelskin Show. Follow us individually. I am at P_Garrison. He is at CGLSKSC. Remember to like the show on Facebook, facebook.com/Steelskins Show. Remember, YouTube, subscribe, comment below, join the conversation. iTunes, rate, subscribe, and write a review. You know the drill, kids. You're not rookies. You're not amateurs. Chris, that's all I got for this episode.
Me too.
All right. Like I said, guys, keep it locked here on the Steelskin Show because coming up next, we will discuss 2017. We will preview the 2017 season. We will talk about our confidence levels going into the season. We'll predict records. We'll predict week 1. All that wonderful stuff. Keep it locked here to the Steelskin Show. But until next time, good night.